Hi, this is Wes Kussmaul again. The previous video showed how one part of the personal information ownership infrastructure protects sources of your personal information that you know about, that is, the formal information about yourself. Now, what about the information about you that's collected by companies and marketers and other organizations as they watch you without your knowledge? What about those groups that aggregate site data and clickstream data and cookie data from various sources, then sort and collate it so they can sell the resulting information asset to political parties and marketers and, well, there's no way of knowing who they sell it to. We call those groups the cookie clubs. The remarkable thing is, there's no one essential piece of information in the clump of information that uniquely identifies you, even though the whole clump identifies you precisely. When it comes to identification, the clump of information about you is just like the physical you. The physical you, your body, does not need to have a name or ID number embedded somewhere in your organs or bones in order for you to be the unique you. Similarly, a social security number or other national ID or even a name is totally unnecessary for the cookie clubs to know that that info clump is the digital you. The info clump that constitutes the digital you takes the form of tables produced by table joins from many sources. The cookie clubs don't need an identifier in order to deliver to their clients and fellow club members a very accurate picture of you, your habits, your preferences, your political leanings, your buying habits, and your vulnerabilities. Anonymity is trickier to establish than may first appear. There's more to it than simply installing an anonymizer in your computer or going to the web through an onion router, such as the Tor system provides. And anonymity does not imply anything improper on the part of the person who chooses not to disclose her identity, regardless of what Eric Schmidt may say on the subject. Lots of people like to have different usernames in different places to keep them from being tracked when they don't want to be tracked. We've noted that your computer and phone are full of files placed by people who want to track you, regardless of whatever username you happen to be using, which rather defeats the attempt to remain anonymous and untracked. We'll deal with deep, thorough anonymization in a moment, but first, let's remind ourselves that while we want to be completely anonymous, we want those we deal with to be accountable. If that 11-year-old girl in the chat room with your daughter is actually a 50-year-old predator, you'd like to know that. If that laptop you bought in an online auction seems to be late in arriving, you'd like to know that the seller is an identifiable human being. And you'd like some accountability from the person spreading false rumors about your family in Facebook. We rely on the assertions made by others, and so we all want accountability. At the same time, we want privacy, which can mean anonymity. We want both anonymity and accountability at the same time. And we can have exactly that. The personal information ownership infrastructure will deliver anonymity and accountability at the same time. As we pointed out in the first privacy video, it's like the anonymous accountability we're supposed to have with car registrations. Everyone can see your license plate number, but others can't know your identity except under certain circumstances. So we can have accountability and at the same time we can have privacy. But there has to be a back office whose practices and policies are visible and monitorable and at the same time secure. The back office must be built and managed in such a way that you can trust it. This can be done. As you own your identity, you should own the authority that issues your identity, just as you own the city where you live and the Vital Records Department that issued your paper birth certificate. Now, the practice of separating your car's registration from your driver's license provides anonymity on the physical highway, but on the information highway, we need something better. With your physical license plate on your physical car, it takes considerable effort for governments and marketers to keep track of where you go, who you visit, etc. But on the information highway, it's fairly easy for nosy organizations to track your every finger step, your habits, your social and political relationships, your place of residence. Everything is easily discoverable and is constantly recorded in tables that are relentlessly joined with other tables about you from other sources. Unlike the physical highway, where nosy organizations find it impossible to track your every move, on the information highway, it's quite possible. So we need to take other steps. Once again, we need to examine our assumptions about the internet. We're used to saying things like, the browser appears in a window. Well, what's a browser and what's a window? A window is something that allows people to see what? The outdoors, of course. From indoors. That's the legitimate use of a window. Looking the other way, from outdoors to indoors, is typically not the legitimate use of a window. Now, when you go from place to place inside one of our indoor spaces, you do not need a browser. After all, you don't use a vehicle and a road map or GPS to navigate inside a building. Rather, the paths are predetermined. They're called corridors. And so, in an indoor space, there's no need for DNS or URLs, or for that matter, web addresses, because our buildings are apart from the highway, remember? Indoors is not on the web. Now, if we choose to go outdoors, well, we all know how the web works. But if we want to look out a window to the outdoors, indoors provides no facilities for those outside the window to look in on us and track what we're looking at, just as in the physical world, right? From an indoor space, you can enter a URL and browse to your heart's content, but if you want to do your online banking, either of two things will have to take place. Either your bank will need a building to which you as a customer will have indoor access, or you'll need to go outside to do your banking on the web. Yes, that web, with all its phishing sites, with no occupancy permits, accessed by browsers running in a space made by code that no professionally licensed code auditor has looked at. Good luck out there. If I were you, I'd look for a bank with a building instead of a bank that keeps your money in boxes on the sidewalk. If no such indoor banks exist, well, perhaps you know of an entrepreneurial banker who would like to start one. Stepping outside of our metaphor for a moment, the technology for browsing from indoors consists of two things. The first item is software called a viewer, which looks like a browser, but which has no ability for a site to put anything on your machine. Basically, a browser with no address bar, no JavaScript, no cookies, and such other elements of outdoor space. Remember, you can still go outdoors, and until there are buildings to go to, that's where you'll spend much of your time. The second item is good old Tor anonymization software, because after you've eliminated all the internal tracking mechanisms, you still need to obscure your IP address. Tor or other onion software is therefore part of the viewer software. So that takes care of one source of Fingersteps information. But let's not forget, we still have that eminently trackable identity credential. We need to ensure that there's a way to keep our relying parties, especially those that have not signed our personal NDA, from gathering our more formal Fingersteps from places where we've actually authenticated ourselves. Tune in to the video entitled Donna's Adventure in Anonymity to learn how we do that.